welcome to the
We still can't hear him.
the
I still can't
PFC
hear.
World's our radio show. Amy, we are live. And
We can
we're
see
live
you.
to 30 million people, and we're 30 million homes and on WPAT 9:30 AM radio. That's right. And we have such a busy day today. We have a very, very tight schedule. So first on the agenda, we have National Calendar Day. We have Amy from National Calendar. We can hear you, Amy. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
And we can hear and see you. Also, we are on YouTube, and we at about 3:12. I don't have an exact time. I apologize. We will have Dinesh D'Souza, who is a nationally known producer, filmmaker, to come and join us regarding his new book, 2,000 Mules, which I don't know what, I don't get the name of that, but it's pretty interesting. We'll find out what 2,000 Mules is about. So, but I'm very excited. Dr. Khanna cannot be with us today. I'm sorry about that, but we have a phenomenal announcement that we just want to make. And we have the National Day Calendar people with us. I want to share this with you. Here it is. National Day Calendar. We have Amy from National Day Calendar on the phone. Amy, tell us what National Day Calendar is.
National Day Calendar is, the best way to describe it is we are the #1 leading source for celebrating quirky holidays like National Pizza Day, National Yogurt Day, and your day, which is actually a month, National Returning to Youth Month. Congratulations on your approval.
Yes, National Returning Youth Month. Yep.
And we are the #1 trending topic on social media.
Whoa, say that one more time. What are you? Say that again.
The #1 trending topic on social media.
Wow, the #1 trending topic. That's phenomenal.
Yes.
Because everybody goes there. They want to know about what day is today, right?
Yes. Today is Pullman Your Pocket Day. It's also Shrimp Scampi Day, which is a favorite of mine because I'm a shrimp eater.
Hey, they have a lot of shrimp in Dakota, right? North Dakota.
Yeah, we get it out of the Missouri River. We really do.
They come all the way up the Mississippi, I tell you.
That's not true at all.
So National Day Calendar, basically you're an official registry, a national registry of days and months.
Yes, we're at unofficial registry. People cannot get us confused with the national federal archives. We're not federal.
I don't think the federal holidays recognize Star Wars days, but that's okay with us. We're not worried about that. So we just completed, Amy, this morning, I'm very excited to talk about it, the National Day, which is the Returning Youth Day. Okay,
yes.
Now what this is Dr. Khanna formed this. She can't be with us today. Dr. Surajit Khanna, returningyouth.com. He established the National Returning Youth Month, and he's the founder of the program, designed to restore the hopes and dreams of youth coming out of incarceration or parole or anything. You know, it begins on Dr. Khanna's birthday. His birthday is May 4th. Now, I just want to point out to you that May 4th is, a lot of people call it Star Wars Day. Because Star Wars Day, may the 4th be with you, may the Force be with you. So this is what we say about Dr. Khanna's Returning Youth Month, which starts on May 4th. It is, since May 4th is Star Wars Day, May 4th, may the 4th be with you is what they say. But for National Returning Youth Month, we say, may the youth be with you. That's right, because we want the youth of today to be with their loved ones. We do not want the youth to be incarcerated. So what Dr. Khanna does, Dr. Surajit Khanna does with his initiative is two very important things. Is #1 is to help these youth not get into risk and not get arrested by providing programs such as jobs, real jobs, paying jobs. You know,
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with flipping burgers, nothing wrong with that. But we're looking for careers that you can either have a good paying job or own a business. For instance, in Montana, we have a business which is an eyeglass business that a post-incarcerated person is part owner of. So that's the type of things we do. So that's stopping. We want to prevent someone from making a mistake and getting arrested and being incarcerated. Why? Amy, early this year, the number was about 70% of all arrested youth get re-arrested within 12 months. It's unacceptable. And basically, it's fluctuated very little over the last 50 years. So we're excited about Returning Youth Month, May the 4th. It begins on May the 4th and it goes to June 4th. So tell us what you're going to do with this thing. I want to show everybody I'm going to show everybody the icon we have here, but tell us what your organization is going to do about Returning Youth Month.
Well, let's just start with the approval of the day and why we decided that it was a good fit for National Day calendar. Basically, we feel like your message is an important message. We are all about having fun and celebrating, but once in a while, we have to address issues that we know are serious issues in the world. And your message with Returning Youth Month is a positive message. You're trying to take a bad situation and turn it around. So with that said, the first thing that we are doing for you is we are giving you your own webpage on our website.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So it's an organic story about your month, a little bit of information on what it means, why you chose it, the purpose behind it. We're giving recommendations on how to help, give people ideas on places to donate. If you're a business, how you can become involved. And the other thing that we're doing is we are going to announce your day with a blast. It's actually the month. And how we do that is we add it to a list of days, but we're going to lead with your month to announce to everybody who follows National Day calendar this particular celebration, and it goes out as a proclamation. Now, I want you to know that on any given day, we've had up to 7 million followers. So your month,
7 million followers. I love it. So
yes.
Please tell 7 million followers about Returning Youth Month. Please.
Yes.
We also have a very intensive media list, ranging from the very popular ABC, NBC, CBS networks, all the way down to the smaller media outlets. So they're also going to get notification.
We have 1 minute just to let you know, Amy.
Okay. And so basically what we want to do is we want to help spread the word of your month and make people aware of what your organization is doing and the importance it has on communities.
Here are some ways you can support Returning Youth Month. Encourage business, participate, get in contact with us, returningyouth.com, returningyouth.com. Advocate on your local level, become a mentor, contact us, donate to our initiative, Dr. Khanna's initiative, purchase bus passes, transportation for job interviews. There's so many different things you can do to make sure we reduce crime in this country, and then we can reduce recidivism. And listen, we have Dr. Ben Johnson with us. He's going to join us for the next segment. But let's be honest, it's the African-American community that has the highest arrest rate. We have to address that. Amy, thank you so much for joining us for a very busy day. But we're waiting for Dinesh to join.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the next segment. I'm going to show his video. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Returning.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Yes.
Good luck with everything, and let us know if we can help any other way.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, there we go. So now I want to talk about Dinesh D'Souza because I'm very excited about him being here and joining us. But he has a new movie out, and what I want to do is show the video. So the preview, and then he's going to join us very shortly. So here we go with the preview.
The most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Let me say it again.
The 2020 election was the most secure
Election in American history.
Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I think millions of Americans know something went wrong, and they have little pieces, and no one's really put it together.
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
If I believed the president were a Nazi, I might steal an election.
Bold accusations require bold evidence, and they haven't seen it.
We have been working on something big.
Show me the money.
Can we meet? I've been working with Greg Phillips. He has a deep background in election intelligence.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do. We identified in Atlanta 242 mules that went to an average of 24 drop boxes. But Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog. Bad backgrounds, bad reputations. They are interested in one thing, that's money.
And in no shape, in no way, in no time is that legal.
This is organized crime.
Do you have video evidence?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
What you're about to see is disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't we all vote at 1 o'clock in the morning?
On one night, this person, this mule, went across 6 counties to 27 different drop boxes.
I call it the Mexican mafia, seriously, because they work like that.
This is jaw-dropping.
What you showed is frightening.
It's just sickening to me.
Now we come to the most important question of all. Was the magnitude of vote trafficking enough to tip the balance in the 2020 presidential election?
It's not a leap to say this would have made a difference.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America. That's provable. And that's enough for me to fight the left with every fiber in my body.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
2,000 mules in select.
Okay, thank you. I went on. Welcome, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the 3rd time I've interviewed you. We really appreciate you coming. I know we have a short amount of time here. I've got a couple of quick questions I want to key up because I want to jump right into it because of the time frame. Number one, 2,000 mules. I didn't know you were a horse aficionado. Didn't know you like horses so much. Anyway, you'll tell me what that is. But the second question, basically, we have people, I purposely invited a person on here who's been a great supporter of this radio station, and I love him. We get along very well. He doesn't believe it, and believe me. So my first question right out of the bat is, listen, Mr. D'Souza, the Supreme Court didn't buy it. Bill Barr didn't buy it. I don't know one media that sent that bid. Fox News is supposed to be conservative. They didn't buy it. Newsmax. Oh my God, the savior of the conservative movement. They didn't buy it. So there's many people out there saying, show me the money. I don't believe it. It's been, 7-8 months, maybe longer. So please dive us into this movie and tell us about this. I'm going to let Dr. Ben Johnson join and ask difficult questions. Mr. Souza, go ahead.
Yeah, sounds good. And of course, I welcome the discussion. I'm actually looking forward to these difficult questions. And let me say, first of all, that all the people that you've described are making their statements without having any knowledge of what is in our movie. So Bill Barr is sort of like the sheriff. And I'm now coming and telling him that they've robbed the bank. And he's like, what? I didn't see any bank being robbed. Well, yeah, that's because the sheriff was not aware that perhaps when you're looking the other way, the bank got robbed. most of the courts, there's a very narrow window to make a legal case for election fraud. You basically have between November, the election, and when the votes are certified, the electors present their vote to the joint houses of Congress. So it's kind of like if you don't prove it in those 2 months, the statute of limitations is expired. Your legal window may be closed.
Wait,
but
if you have a 2-month statute of limitation?
No, what I'm getting at is that's the legal window in which you have to submit these cases. Then the new president is inaugurated and it becomes a fait accompli, kind of a done deal. But here's my point. Think of a normal crime, right? Somebody commits a rape or they do something and the statute of limitations is expired. And so there's nothing you can do about it. You can't lock them up, but DNA evidence emerges subsequently that they did it. Isn't it valuable to put that evidence out? Don't you want to know who did that crime? Isn't it important that the American public be aware of the latest information? So what I want to say is that this is a completely new approach to election fraud. This is not the usual mumbo jumbo about anomalies or there's a dead guy in Phoenix who voted or this guy moved and he still submitted his ballot. We're not talking about episodic fraud. What I am accepting as my burden of proof is systematic, coordinated fraud in the key states that decided the election. And we're talking really here about 5 key states, Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Those are the 5 states that I focus on in this movie.
Okay, so tell us what you found out. We showed everybody I'm showing your website here, Dinesh. We showed everybody your 3-minute commercial preview. Tell us what the evidence is.
Sure. So I'm building on and putting into movie form the research that was developed by an organization called True the Vote. Now, what True the Vote did is they had a whistleblower come forward in Georgia who said, listen, I basically am a paid ballot trafficker. I go to these left-wing organizations. They give me a whole bunch of these fraudulent ballots. I take them to mail-in drop boxes and I get paid $10 a ballot. So this whistleblower becomes the beginning of an investigation, only the beginning. But True the Vote goes, okay, and are you the only guy who's doing this? And he goes, only guy, are you kidding me? I'm part of a big network. And so True the Vote then begins to think, well, if there was a network, let's just say hypothetically, how would you find out? And they got a very simple and clever idea. What if we were to buy the cell phone traffic, it's called geo-tracking, of all the movement of every cell phone in Atlanta, in Phoenix, in Milwaukee, in Detroit, in Philadelphia, between October 1, early voting, and election day. So that's 10 trillion pings of data.
Wow.
Now
10 trillion.
10 trillion. And now they say, let's run an algorithm. And because this cell phone data doesn't just tell you at a single moment in time, it tracks the movement of a phone. So for example, if you got up in the morning, you got up at home, you went to the coffee shop, you then went to the studio, you then went and had dinner with a friend, all of that would be shown on the geo-tracking. You can kind of plot it on a kind of electronic line or electronic map. So True the Vote said, listen, we're going to set a very high bar. We're going to look for mules. A mule is a paid illegal vote trafficker who went to 10 drop boxes or more. And the reason they set the bar so high is because, look, there's no good reason to go to 3 drop boxes, but someone accidentally could do that. I went to 1 drop box, I dropped in my ballot. It so happened I had to tie my shoelace when I got to the second one, so it looks like I stopped there. So forget all that nonsense. Let's just look at 10, because if you can think of a rational reason for someone, particularly like between 12 midnight and 3 a.m. to go to 10 drop boxes, I'd like to hear what that is. So the idea was to catch high velocity, very industrious, egregious mules, not all the mules, just the worst offenders. And so they ran this geo-tracking and they found, wow, in Georgia, about 240 mules, in Arizona.
240 people stuffing ballot boxes, right?
Exactly. In Arizona, about 200, Michigan, about 100, Philadelphia, 1,100. So this is where we get the title of the movie. We add them up. That's where you get 2,000 mules. Now, when I first saw some of this evidence, I mean, I found it fascinating because, of course, This is how the CIA found bin Laden. They tracked the cell phone of one of his associates. That's in Zero Dark 30, the movie. This is how the FBI arrested some January 6th protesters. They used the geo-tracking of their phones inside the Capitol. This is how law enforcement works every day. So this is when you go to the mall, if you get a notification on your phone, there's a special going on in the Apple store. Well, how they know you're there? Geo-tracking. You go on vacation, you land in Naples. Weather's going to be really nice in Naples today. How they know you're in Naples? Geo-tracking. So this is something we're all familiar with. And that's why I think this is so interesting. We're just applying the exact same technology in the exact same way to document ballot trafficking. And that is one of the two lines of evidence. The other one, which I'm happy to talk about, is video evidence.
Okay, so we show, I know Dr. Johnson has a question.
Okay,
I wanted to go. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
First of all, we mentioning majority of the black states that was this mule was dealing with. This understanding of this organization is sophisticated. So you know it has not been just put together right now in the last year for this election. So when I'm looking at this ain't their first rodeo. So it had to been done before for them to be this fluent. So when we look at it, we only talking about this last election with Trump, but we ain't talking about the rest of the elections. So when this comes up, it makes me think, why are we just looking at this particular election? Why are we looking at these 5 states that's majority, say, black cities and things of this nature? And the sophistication of this type of organization is not just started. Because where you talking about, if you really listen to what you're saying, this stuff has been organized like a crime network. So I don't believe this is the first rodeo. And I believe they didn't never check the rest of the other elections dealing with all type of elections. Now, when Trump comes in and he loses, now all this stuff is checked. So I can't really believe all this stuff. And I don't believe this is not their first rodeo. And it is you busting open a whole Watergate of information that should have been looked at years ago dealing with elections.
All right, let him respond, Ben.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, weirdly, I was waiting to disagree with you, but I actually agree with you. And let me even go further. The Democrats are the party of voter fraud, and the Democrats have been doing voter fraud since the 19th century. If you read up on Tammany Hall, the days of the 19th, immigrants would come off the boat. They'd be met by Democrats with a ballot, and they go, listen, sign here. We'll fill out everything else. Not a thing to worry about. And listen, here's some money. Go have a drink. This has been going on in America for a long time. But here's the point. The key difference in the 2020 election is that the absentee or mail-in ballot vote, which was previously a pretty small percentage of the overall vote, now becomes a very large percentage of the vote because of COVID. So suddenly, if you're doing fraud, it's a small fraud in the past, but it becomes a really big fraud in 2020. That actually also makes it easier to catch.
But can I also ask, if you knew this was going on in the beginning, is the watchmen of the elections or people who's heading the elections or looking at it, why wouldn't they have stopped this in the beginning? See, this is what I'm saying. Now it's snowballed into a great network of, can steal an election from an individual. So I don't understand if this has been going on, why has not a whistle hasn't been blown before? But I'm just saying, so now we get this net, when we look at this organization, we can say that Trump won the election out of nowhere based on he was losing. They thought all the way to have me. I mean, they were thinking, what's her name? Gary?
Hillary Clinton, you mean?
Hillary Clinton. Everybody thought he was going to lose the election. All of a sudden he wins. We could look at it in that aspect too, as what was really going on in that election. So we can go back.
Let him respond, Ben.
Okay. Yeah, this is a movie you guys are going to want to see. And here's why, because again, funnily, I'm sort of in agreement with you. Our elections are run in a little bit of a third world fashion. And let me give you a small example of why that is so. If you who are living, let's just say in Tulsa, decide you're going to move to Phoenix, every government agency will figure out very quickly that you've moved. The tax people will know right away. The zoning and housing people will know right away. The bank people will know right away. Your Social Security people will know right away. But you know what? You will stay on the election roll where you were before, and your name is never really going to get off that election roll unless you write them personally and ask them to take it off. So here's what I'm getting at. A lot of Americans move every few years, the voter rolls don't change. And what that means is that the voter rolls are full of the names of people who don't live in the area, have died, have moved. And so I'm just giving you that as a small example of how these problems don't get corrected until they reach an epidemic level. And then somebody goes, oh, well, okay, well, now maybe we need to clean up the voter rolls. But this is a very badly run operation. And when it's like that, it's easier to cheat. Just like imagine if you have banks and they don't really have security guards, they don't have surveillance cameras. They tell the tellers, look, don't really check the signatures. Kind of if the scrawl sort of matches, go for it. Well, bank robbers are going to go, man, this is fantastic, because this gives us the opportunity to be able to pull off a heist.
When you
tell us, hold on, Ben. Tell us about the movie. Where can you see it? When can you see it?
The movie is just called 2000 Mules, and you should go to the website, which is 2000mules.com. The number 2000, then mules.com.
2000mules.com.
Yeah, and it's going to have a limited theatrical release. There's a virtual premiere that you can watch at home. You can buy DVDs. It'll be eventually available in a week or so for digital download. So I've put it up in 5 or 6 different ways, and I'm also making sure that it can't be canceled. I'm not putting it on Apple iTunes or Amazon Prime, the places where it can be taken down. I'm making sure that anyone who wants to see this movie is going to be able to do that.
That's great.
I mean, but Gary, this is amazing, because what you're doing is punching holes in our nation voting rights of America when you look at that, because it's a bunch of holes in what you're saying in the election process. So now you come out of nowhere and now you're a specialist or expert, they saying that all these other experts, all the Supreme Court, Trump, which is one of the most powerful men at that particular time and still is, all these individuals, they couldn't figure this out. Then we talking about that this has been going on for a while. Then it's in the both black states, which I'm looking at and what you're saying. So this is kind of
Ben, I got to interrupt. So we're on the CFC page. We're interviewing Dinesh D'Souza here.
Yes,
I just want to say that to go out and see the movie. Now, Ben, could you please respond to Ben's comment, Dinesh?
Yeah, what Ben is saying is that all these powerful people supposedly had no idea. Now, what I'm saying is that's partially true. They certainly had no idea about the mules. I agree. Yes. That's being revealed in the movie. But if you're asking me, do they know that the election rolls are really bad? They already know that. Do they know that absentee ballot fraud is the most common type of fraud? They already know that. Do they know that there's a real problem with the mail-in ballot with the chain of custody? See, when you go in to vote, you show an ID and they know it's you. You go behind a curtain and the security of the vote is protected. But let's say you were to go in to vote, you go behind the curtain, you get your ballot, and then you turn around and tell those guys, hey, listen, I got to run home to do something. I'll come back in 2 hours with my ballot. They'd be like, no, you can't do that because the custody of the ballot is unknown. Who knows where that ballot's going to be when you leave here? Now think about an absentee ballot. Is there anybody observing it? No. These ballots go to nursing homes, they go to campuses, they go to homeless shelters, people can collect them. So what I'm getting at is the opportunity for fraud is much greater, and everybody involved in elections knows that. It's just that they don't do anything about it.
But can I ask you just a quick question? Was it enough fraud for him to win? Was it enough? Was it millions or hundreds of thousands of votes from these what you said, mules, excuse me, I'm sorry, that he would have won the election? Now that's the question at Mo. Was it enough for him to win that it was fraud?
Yes, it was, and I'll tell you why. Because the election in the states that we're talking about was very close. So, for example, let's look at one state, Georgia. We're talking about 240 mules making an average of about 30 stops at 30 drop boxes apiece, dropping in about 5 votes per drop. Just do the math and ask yourself if you get a number bigger than 12,000. Why 12,000? That was the margin between Trump and Biden, a really narrow state. Look at Arizona, even closer, 10,000 votes, 11,000 votes. So what I'm getting at is when you see that the margin is small, then the amount of fraud is much bigger than the margin between the two candidates in those states. Now, there are other states, California, where you'd have to do an incredible, I mean, the margin was huge, but we're talking about states that were quite close.
Well, Dinesh, hold on, Ben. Tell me, give me a state and tell me the margin of error. But then if you take out all what you believe was to be with the mules, what the actual percentage was or the vote would be. Give me
All
just
right.
one state.
So let me do that with Philadelphia using the data in the movie. And I'm using rounded numbers, but because the exact numbers are in the movie.
That's good enough.
All right. All right. So in Philadelphia, the margin between Trump and Biden, I don't know the exact number, 65,000 votes, somewhere in that range, about 65,000 votes. Okay. We're talking about 1,100 mules. 1,100 mules. Let's just call it 1,000, making an average of 50 drop box stops, 5 average votes per drop box. So you have to multiply 1,000 by 50 by 5.
55,000.
Your 1,000 times 50 gives you 50,000, and when you multiply by 5, you get 275,000. That is vastly bigger than the margin in Pennsylvania, which was a decent sized margin.
Now, can I ask this, Gary? Who would be,
go ahead.
Who would have the power, listen to what you're saying, to organize something like this right under your nose and no one would know about it? Who would have, what individual would have the power to do this? That is also a question to me. Who could do that? And Trump, which was the most powerful man in the world, that they did it right under his nose, which he knew something was going on, which your guy's saying, but he just couldn't figure it out, or his cronies, or the Supreme Court, or the people over the voting. It's kind of hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. Well, listen, we interview a mule in the movie who talks about it. So it can't be that hard to believe, because it's sort of like saying, it's hard to believe that you've got this Italian organization called the Mafia that has all these so-called families and they're distributed, they do all these crimes and they control Canal Street. Yeah, but then when you talk to, this guy and that guy, and he goes, yeah, Don Corleone paid me to do this, then you begin to realize, you know what, there's something to it after all, because illegal operations do occur. Organized crime is a reality, and this is a form of organized crime, but organized crime in the election area. Now, you ask, how do you pull it off? The simple answer is this: the mules are operating through a large network of left-wing activist and nonprofit groups embedded in those inner cities. That's where they get the ballots. How do I know that? Because the geo-tracking shows that the mules go to these centers, they get the ballots, then they start heading out to the drop box.
They go to nonprofit organizations, right? Okay.
Yes.
So what I understand, let me just run this by. Let's say I was a billionaire. Could I establish 100 different nonprofits in the community and then donate to them, and they in turn donate to a politician? Is that legal?
No. You're allowed to set up as many nonprofits as you want, and you can give them as much money as you want. But nonprofits are by the law, by IRS rules, forbidden from engaging directly in election activity at all for any candidate or for any party. Now, they can say things like, let's all get out and vote. They're allowed to do that, but they're not allowed to tip the balance for this party or this candidate against another one. That is strictly forbidden.
Okay. But what they can do is what they did do was establish locations where they were handed out ballots and go put them into ballot boxes. Now, I want to get to the point that these ballot boxes never existed before. Is that true?
That's right. Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, they funded a lot of these drop boxes. And what they did was they went to these cities and counties and said, we have a lot of money we want to give you, but on the condition that you create these drop boxes. So kind of what I'm saying is that a new infrastructure was created. And if you want to know how it was possible to pull off this kind of a heist, it's because there were lots of new rules in 2020 that didn't exist before.
Because of the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic.
Now, I never heard that about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, that they were, first of all, we've heard many times that they were shadow banning conservatives, shadow banning Trump, blocking him, shutting down the president of the United States. Mind-boggling. But I never heard that they were actually funding these drop boxes.
Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, through a series of nonprofit foundations, they didn't give the money directly, but they gave it through these other groups in excess of $400 million from Zuckerberg alone.
$400 million. So I'm just here saying to myself, the American people, when you think he won the election by 51%, let's make up a number, Dinesh, that Biden won by 51%. If we drop out all of these extra percentages, I'm thinking that Trump would have probably won by, I'm going to guess 60%. Give me a number. Give me a guess. I'm not going to hold you to it.
Well, the way to think about it is not so much in terms of the percentage, because we don't go by a strict popular vote. You have to look at the electoral vote count. And so it's more like, the way I think about it is, if we did the math in Philadelphia, now Philadelphia has, if I remember correctly, 20 electoral votes. What you would do is then move those 20 electoral votes from the Biden camp over into the Trump camp. That's the way to do the math. And by the way, we do it in the movie. So in the movie, you can have this kind of nail biting where you sort of look at the fraud and then it's applied to each state. And it's, in a sense, we do a revised electoral count of what we think it really was.
All right. So now, first of all, please go see this movie, 2000 Mules. Go to the website. You can find out more information, 2000mules.com. However, I have a very important question. I think what you saw, we had a gentleman on, he had to go off, who didn't believe this. I got the impression that he kind of changed his mind after speaking to you. I think that's interesting. We saw that in the preview. Certain people sitting with you changed their mind. What can possibly happen from here?
Well, what you just described to me is very hopeful and very important, which is to say that if people see the movie with an open mind, and part of what I say to them with this film is, forget everything that you know or think you know about election fraud, because it's almost like people are already dug in. And so they kind of think like, I have to be just recycling the latest conspiracy theory. But no, I say, look, why don't you sit in the jury box, you watch the movie. And the good thing is, I'm not appealing to expertise. I'm not saying, here's Mr. Smith, he has an affidavit, here's Mrs. Smith, she saw this. No, I'm going to show you the mules themselves at the exact time of the election, dropping the ballots and stuffing them into the boxes and wearing gloves so they don't leave fingerprints, and looking around to make sure that they aren't spotted, and taking photos of the ballots so that they can get paid. And all of this is for you to observe in the movie. So I think the beauty of this is that in a divided society, we can come closer together if we can agree on certain facts. And starting out with the fact that there was a lot of systematic coordinated fraud, whether or not you agree with my math, whether or not you agree that Trump won, let's start by putting aside this notion of the most secure election in history. This was perhaps the least secure election in modern American history.
So we're going to convince some people, you're going to convince some people. I've heard it's impossible to turn over the election. So what I'm guessing the best way of action here is just to help secure future elections. Is that the goal? Because is 2020 a lost deal? Is that done?
I can't say that I know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I have mixed feelings about it, because on the one hand, I say, it's a done deal. We're 2 years into Biden's term. But another part of me says, listen, if Lance Armstrong took drugs and won the Tour de France 8 times, they took away his medals. They said, hey, listen, you can't have the fruits of victory if you achieve that victory by cheating. So I don't like the idea of saying, listen, no problem, let's just move on. It's just not my psychology. Now, I will say that I think that one step that would be very important, I think, is for law enforcement to step in and go interview the mules. That's not hard to do, because True the Vote has their cell phone IDs. They don't have their names, but they have their cell phone IDs. And so law enforcement can easily find out who those people are, go talk to them. Hey, listen, who paid you? Who put you up to this? And that would right away throw a window into the bowels of this fraud operation. So the movie is not going to do that, but it's going to point to a very logical next step. And it's going to be a really interesting question to see who opposes that from happening, because it would seem like a commonsensical next step just to find out what the full extent of this really is.
Hey, Gary, can I say this? My phone just went blank. it cut off on me for about 10. I couldn't get it to work for 10 minutes. I don't know what this is all
They shut
about.
you off. You were talking to Dinesh.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Either that or you were afraid of being.
It never happened.
Maybe you were afraid. Before. Maybe you were afraid of being geo-tracked and you turned off your phone.
No, what I was getting.
I'm only joking.
Hey, Gary, I was just getting that, and this gentleman who has the ability to put together an elaborate operation like this. That's what I was asking.
What he said, well, you dropped off. It was real simple. I'll give a quick answer to it. It was the fact that the pandemic happened. They were able in mostly Democratic areas, cities, to say, well, we got to protect the population by putting these voting boxes in, and you can vote at any time you want. You don't have to come in to vote because that's risky. You could catch COVID. So that was put in aggressively, that which enabled it. As far as I understand, Mr. D'Souza, it was mostly done in the Democratic controlled areas. Is that true?
That's why it's so hard to believe.
Yeah, I know it's making him skeptical because I think you think that, well, why is it in the, but see, here's the point is it's actually easier to do in an urban area than in a rural area because a rural area is just far more dispersed. Let's say, for example, you're trying to collect fraudulent ballots. Right? You're trying to collect them at a nursing home. Well, the nursing home is going to have to be somewhere and you're going to have access to it, or a housing complex, a homeless shelter. There are lots of different places to get your hands on ballots. Campuses, students graduate, but their ballots still show up on the campus. They're in the dorms. They're just all over the place. So someone who's smart can go, listen, let's round up all these ballots. Just go hallway by hallway and collect absentee ballots. These students have all graduated. They're all living someplace else. If we vote here, nobody's going to know the difference.
But you know what it also brings to me about racism, because what's going on in America, it's splitting the American apart. You know, it's based on this race versus this race, and these individuals who believe in what we had, the philosophy of what we think should be going on in America. All this stuff, what we're saying, is bringing more racial tension in everything. Even the vote going on now for the governor now. They based it on, governor, I don't want to mention his name, winning the next election because he didn't check into the voter fraud. And then the other guy is saying he should have, and he should have known it was, but they couldn't find no information. Everything is based on another lady's running for the Democrats. So all this stuff is going on, which is black, she's black, which is happening now. The country's getting torn apart more than ever. Instead of coming together, because we have too many people against each other based on race. It's like hatred, even in the Senate. All this stuff is like hate. They hate each other. I mean, I don't know what it is a game or something, but this should not be going on, first and foremost, about anything. And it is fueling.
Let him respond.
Well, I mean, I totally agree that we've seen polarization in our society. Like, I came to the United States from India at the age of 17 in 1978. And, we've had divided politics. We've had Republicans and Democrats, the left and the right. But I haven't seen the kind of polarization that we've seen in the last 10 years. It's gotten a lot worse. And I think what makes it so strange is obviously America has come a long way since the civil rights movement. So in some ways, the obvious forms of the old discrimination are gone. And yet, nevertheless, the polarization is more. Guys, I'm sorry. It looks like I'm going to have to flee to the next interview. So thank you for taking the time. It means a lot.
I'll send you the link
later, okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Man, I just came off Gary. This is, man.
I'm going to call you, Benny.